Hi, Jessyn. Are you picking this up here? Do I need to speak out? Okay, thank you. I'm Irene Wall. I am a lifelong resident of Seattle. I represent today the City Neighborhood Council, particularly the Neighborhood Planning and Land Use Committee, and here's my initial question to you. Seattle was heralded for its innovation in citizen-led neighborhood planning in the 90s. Since then, neighborhood planning has drifted away from being a comprehensive and grassroots effort to a staff-driven effort with a limited focus on upzoning to accommodate growth. Do you believe that current Seattle residents in diverse neighborhoods should have more say over land use and zoning issues in their neighborhoods?
So, our neighborhood council process. I know there's been a movement away from that over the last year, and there's some fair critiques of the neighborhood council process, but rather than getting rid of them entirely, we need to open up the doors and make sure that we're having meetings at times of day where renters and people with young families and others can participate. To me, it isn't that we close doors, it's that we need to open them. And so specifically how this impacts my views around affordability is that and I'm going to take a moment and get in the weeds, if you don't mind. So we have a PSRC planning process that allocates affordability, or rather, allocates population growth across our region.
What's that?
Good question. Puget Sound Regional Council, and that is it's a federally mandated planning organization. And I believe that just as we do that with growth across our region, we should do that with affordability across our city. And that we should, like I said earlier, we're all in this together, no neighborhood off the hook, but there are different ways we achieve affordability in different neighborhoods. For example, there are some neighborhoods where displacement is a real issue. We should be looking at rental supports. We should be looking at inventorying cultural assets in those neighborhoods. Other places it will make a lot of sense to have mother-in-law, ADUs, etc. And then other places it really matters to have more density. I mean, the only way we accommodate 1,000 people a week is truly by increasing the housing stock. But people's voices in this process matters. It matters to have community buy-in, but at the same time, I really do believe that we need to be making land use decisions that accommodate more people. And I know that all of us, whether you are a renter worried about rent, whether you are someone who's lived in your house for 40 years and are worried about property taxes and how you pay them on a fixed income, whether a young family and you're trying to buy a house in a town where $700,000 is the median income, I believe that we need to use a whole array of tools from density to rental support to surplus property to achieve this affordability crisis.
Let me follow up. I asked specifically about personalizing zoning by neighborhood. Would you agree to that versus the program that we're looking at now that implies the same extra development capacity under MHA across all areas? Would you allow neighborhoods to modify their zoning under a validated neighborhood planning process?
So I would say that to a certain degree, yes. What I said at the outset, though, is I believe that we all need to make sure that we are accommodating affordability as a plan. So to the extent that we, as a particular neighborhood, said our job is to have X number of affordable units or X number of ways of saving affordability in a neighborhood, I certainly think the neighborhood has an important role in figuring out how to do that. And there are subtleties around planning that you can do, but at the end of the day, I think that we do have to achieve affordability targets and that every neighborhood has a role in that. Now, some planning processes have do a better job of being in dialogue with a community. And specifically with the MHA, many of you are probably aware that the draft EIS came out, right? And so there are 3 different ways of allocating growth, and one has more focused growth in centers, another one spreads it out a little more. And I think that's an opportunity for communities to be in dialogue. And I was at the Ravenna-Eckstein, the Ravenna-Bryant Community Council the other day. And there were some really interesting discussions from neighbors with very specific things on the table around how they were going to achieve growth in that neighborhood. It was not what I would characterize as an anti-density conversation at all, but rather how are we making it work. So I would say there are ways that you can get the community involved. I do think that, so what I just want you to make sure you're hearing from me as an answer is we need to accommodate growth. And there are processes that accommodate dialogue better than others, and I would commit to a process that has dialogue.
If this were an audience full of developers and real estate professionals, would there be anything different in your answer to those questions?
It would be exactly the same thing. And I would say to them exactly the same thing. And honestly, it's in their interest to do better community outreach, right? If their goal is to build, and the concern is that people don't want it, you have to have a dialogue with the community up front and early. And so I would say exactly the same thing, that neighborhood process matters. And I'm saying to you, of course, that we have to accommodate growth. And I think that there are ways that we do it. We can't stop change from happening in the community, but there are ways that we do it where we work with communities around cultural assets, around environmental assets, and use the whole array of planning tools and affordability tools to approach affordability neighborhood by neighborhood.
Okay, well, I think I'm out of time, although I have more questions.
Good, well, I'll stick around.